Hi, welcome back to another exciting episode of Homosexuals with Bad Teeth. Just kidding. Today we're going to talk about chess in conversations that don't help with making friends or trivia. The game of chess is about 1,500 years old. It is a zero-sum two-player game. Zero-sum game is basically a game where as you win, your opponent loses. So if you gain a point, your opponent loses a point. This could be something like baseball, for example, where you have like 3 strikes to be out. Every strike you get gets your opponent closer to switching sides. In chess, as you gain pieces on the board, you gain advantage over your opponent. Zero-sum game. But it wasn't always 2 players. It actually used to be 4 players. It was played in a bunch of different ways. So let's go back to the beginning. So sometime in the 600s in northern India, there was a game called Chaturanga, which means 4 arms, 4 something in Sanskrit. It was developed by a prince. I didn't really find any historical accounts of the prince, but Mr. Gupta, His Highness. So they made the game Chaturanga. So at this time, India and Persia, they had relations. So the game spread to the Caliphate around the year 700, and they loved it. So they made up their own game, their own version of it called Shah, which translates to king, which translates to check, which is where the word checkmate came from because it was Shah something. I don't really know, but that's where that came from. And at this time, there was this cute little thing called the Silk Road. So the Silk Road basically connected all of Asia from this place to that place. And lots of things like politics, religion, goods and services, they all traveled along the Silk Road, but also so did chess, which would end up starting the game Go in China and also Shogi in Korea and Japan. And there were some other games that it evolved to in Southeast Asia, like in Myanmar, that sort of area. And it also went the other way. So it went into North Africa, into places like Egypt and Algeria, the Horn of Africa, Somalia, places like that. And the game was very popular in all of its iterations over this point in time. Now, between the years 700 and, say, 1400, the Islamic Caliphate was like really sort of taking over a lot of Europe. They had more or less conquered the Iberian Peninsula. So the Catholic Church was not loving chess. So chess as it's played, like as Europeans understand it, was the first forms were probably played around the year 1100, like 1000 to 1100. There is evidence that the Vikings played it as well. So they were playing it, but the church didn't like people playing these games, the Catholic Church, because other than just wanting the people's money, it was also considered, it didn't really express the values of the Catholic Church, was to know your place. They didn't like a situation where anything other than a dice roll could determine your success, because they sort of believed in the heavenly order until that point in time. So in the 1480s, Isabella of Castile, who I like to call CERSI Lannister, just killed and wiped out all of the Muslims from Europe at that time, and then that begins the Age of Discovery. So the whole world is getting connected. They add in the piece for the queen. A lot of scholars would say that the queen was upgraded. There was a piece there before the queen called the vizier, which was kind of like a Jafar, but it didn't have a lot of power. So at this time, there's lots of powerful women in politics, very powerful queens and tacticians. So that piece was also added into the game of chess. So in the year 1512, I believe, the first strategy book on the game of chess as we know it today was written by a Portuguese master. In 1550, another dude named Ruy Lopez, who was a Spanish monk, he read the book, was like, that's weak sauce, I'm going to write my own. So then he starts writing his own book about chess openings, theory, that sort of thing. And that is basically how chess continues on over the next 300 and some odd years, where it is a game that's kind of started with nobility playing it. The lower classes were not really supposed to play it, but becomes popularized, very, very popular in places like England and France and Germany. And these 300 years or so where the game was being developed is the beginning of what we know as theory. So a theory is not just, you know, an idea that some smart person has about what they believe based on educated guesses. Theory in chess means a study of move patterns and move orders. So basically almost any move that's ever been played in chess has been played at some point before, and it's been recorded down. This is called theory. So you know that your first move, your first like 1 to 10 moves are already sort of predetermined. So that's sort of developing over this time, and it becomes a very sort of romantic, sort of artistic sort of game, and that continues on up until 1924, when the FIDE, the Fédération Internationale des Échecs, my French is really bad, known as FIDE, the International Federation of Chess, is developed in 1924. As of 1950, they would start offering titles such as Grandmaster, International Grandmaster, Candidate Master, Woman Grandmaster. All of these titles came in at different times. It's kind of hard to just lay out what order they came in. But that was an organization that was devoted to elevating the game of chess into more of a sport. So between 1945 and 1989, there was this period called the Cold War, where it was, if you don't know what the Cold War is, it's basically right after World War II until the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the collapse of the Soviet Union. And this was kind of the first time in history that a state or nation, which was the Soviet Union, started sponsoring professional players to just dominate the game completely. And this was done as a way to sort of like elevate communism, to make communism seem more powerful than their democratic counterparts. This is where, if you've seen the show The Queen's Gambit on Netflix, which is a great show, that whole story takes place during the Cold War, and that is sort of lays the backdrop for the dramatics in the chess scene. So the Soviet Union basically would dominate chess until the early 90s, when supercomputers started being they weren't being developed, but they were being finished. So then supercomputers basically outpaced human cognitive ability, and then the world sort of moved into online sports. So in 1999, the Olympic committee, the Olympic I don't know what they're called, the Olympic people, they declared or recognized chess as an Olympic level sport. So now there's chess Olympiads. So different countries will go and play as teams in international competitions. By the early 2000s, e-gaming became super popular with games like StarCraft or World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, Rainbow Six, games where people were getting professional sponsorships. And chess was no exception. So people started pumping a lot of money into chess. However, it wasn't until this past year in 2020, with the explosion of the global pandemic and the release of The Queen's Gambit on Netflix, that a huge international resurgence and interest in online chess began, which was sort of the final barrier. Because even as recently as a few years ago, over-the-board chess competitions, it's quite stratified. It's kind of ironic that it became a game that was for really bougie sort of elites, and the peasants weren't really supposed to play it. And we thought we kind of got out of that, but over-the-board chess, again, is a very exclusive sort of group where these kids train from a very, very young age. The explosion of online chess has removed that last barrier, where people have access now to these databases where they can study theory. There's lots of online classes, and it's really kind of picking up in popularity. So yeah, that's the story of chess, and I love it, and go pick up a game. So if you'd like to hear more conversations that won't help you with trivia or making friends, please like, comment, and subscribe. Stay safe. Bye.